I had to accept the fact that I was depressed. So long the stigma was behind mental illness was so strong that I couldn't accept it that I was depressed. I had years of trauma that was holding me down. And you cannot just get up and walk when it feels like a rock on your chest. You have to be aware of the problem to actually deal with it.
Do hope India gets to that stage where it
Yeah.
is talked about and it is included in our insurances and even as medical help. You're listening to the podcast, It Happens with Everyone, and I'm your host, Raksha. In this episode of It Happens with Everyone, we delve into the journeys of resilience and triumph. We have the privilege of sitting down with Rini Ann, a remarkable individual who has not only overcome the depths of depression, but has emerged as a beacon of hope for others navigating similar challenges. From experiencing the darkest of days to finding light and purpose in her journey, Rini has transitioned from a place of struggle to one of empowerment. She is a certified breakthrough NLP coach and an EFT practitioner. She has battled depression for a long time, especially while working as a nurse earlier. So, she has decided to deal with depression head on and dive into an explorative journey where she is finding herself and what life means for her. And through this process, she intends to help other people to deal with their mental illness and stigma related to it, mainly through working as a breakthrough coach and EFT practitioner. Join us as we uncover her story of transformation, resilience, and the power of turning pain into purpose. Hi, Rini. Welcome. It is an honor to have you on my episode.
Thank you so much, Raksha. Thank you so much for having me here.
Rini, just to start off with, can you share a bit about your journey and background, especially before you experienced depression?
I was just a regular girl who was very happy and doing her schooling, and then I had dreams of becoming a nurse and like everyone, just go abroad or like have my own house, have my own kids, and just follow the regular path that everyone follows. But as I encountered depression and as I battled it, my whole perspective of how I see life has changed, and all my plans were shattered, and I had no choice but to put my mental health before me. So I was sexually abused as a child by two people, and no one told me it was abuse because there's also a lot of stigma related to talking about abuse, and they say don't talk about it, don't tell anyone. So just like a regular household, I was silenced and said don't talk about it and don't express yourself. And that suppression of all these emotions somehow came up as depression in my 20s. I was unaware of depression and what it is and what it meant. And before depression, I was just a regular person, very happy go lucky. And I was doing very well in my college, in my nursing college. I was topping my college. I used to play the guitar, and I was a very good anchor and everything.
I'm really sorry. On to my second question, which was like, when did you first realize that you were struggling with depression?
So depression is not something I heard about growing up too often, or mental illness is not something that was very openly spoken in my family. But as I was studying nursing, and in my third year of nursing, we have like child psychology. And as I was preparing for my exams, I was going through all my syllabus, and there was one part where there was a topic about child abuse, and there were different kinds of abuse that a child goes through, like neglect. And then I was reading about the sexual abuse, and then I realized that, oh my goodness, this has happened to me. And when I tried to speak out, they said it was nothing, it's not abuse, and it happens to everyone. But I started reflecting on that, and I was like, it is not okay. Actually,
Exactly.
it's not okay. And people say it's okay, it happens to everyone, but no, you do not actually realize the depth of trauma and the damage that is done to people who have faced abuse. So I went into very deep depression where I gave up my career and I came home. And then after coming home, I was still being abused, and I was not able to deal with it. And I was trying to speak out, but I was not able to speak out and confide in anybody. And the depression just kept growing and growing in me, and I was very went into a freeze response, as they call it. And I was not able to do anything physically or go anywhere. I was just isolating myself. I didn't want to talk to anyone. And all my friends I had broken contact with. And I was isolating myself because I was very sad. And I didn't want to talk about it because I was in a very vulnerable place. And I didn't know what was going on. And my principal told me that it is depression, you should go see a doctor. But I just neglected that advice, and I said there's nothing like depression, there's nothing that I cannot deal with on my own. As time went on, I realized that I was developing social anxiety. I was developing major panic attacks. And these are all the symptoms. Like, depression is a symptom. You can only see depression as a symptom when it comes up, but the root cause is very deeply related. Like, for anyone, it can be a loss of a parent, or job related issues, or marriage related issues. For me, it was my sexual abuse, and it was showing up as a symptom of depression. And I was not ready to deal with it. While I was at home and while I was recouping, I started reading more about depression. I started reading more about how to deal with abuse, how to recover from abuse. And slowly I started educating myself because my family was not very responsive. I mean, they did not understand what was happening to me actually. In fact, I myself did not understand what was the main cause of depression for me personally. I didn't know why I was feeling sad. I didn't know why I was freezing. But as I was reading more and more about it, and I was talking to some people who knew about it, like they were doctors, my friends were doctors, or I was consulting psychiatrists. But mental health is so expensive in India that even if you want to go for therapies and you want to take therapies, it is very expensive and not readily accessible to everyone. Refrain from seeking help. But as time went on, it became worse, and I had major panic attacks, and I even had to get admitted because I was I was having major panic attack, and I had to be hospitalized. And then I started my treatment. My
True.
awareness came through nursing, and my awareness came through education and reading more about it and learning more about it.
And we have to speak more about it and spread awareness. And as
Yes.
you know, India is still way behind when we are talking about mental illness because people don't talk about it. They think they don't know that it is some kind of like a disease which is curable, right? So they
Yeah.
think as soon as you say a psychiatrist or a psychologist, they say that
Yeah.
are you mad? That's the
Yeah.
first thing that they ask. And because of that, many people don't even share these stories. We have to talk about it and we have to keep talking till actually people understand. Even me, I used to go to a psychologist when I was in Australia. I have always gone. It's not like I had a problem or an issue or anything, but I just wanted to go and talk to somebody who was medically fit to understand and just listen to me. That's it. So I used to
Yeah.
go to a psychologist very often. Now that I'm come back to India, I've been trying to find somebody whom I can actually go and confide into, and unfortunately, I've not been able to find anyone. And
Yeah.
it is still a huge taboo. people don't understand. I don't think we do have like two separate fields like psychologist and a psychiatrist, because every
Yeah.
time I've asked somebody as a psychologist, like people have told me psychiatrist. They've given me the
Uh,
contact details of a psychiatrist. I think they still do not know the difference. As you said, it is expensive. It is very
mm,
expensive. Even I tried
yes.
going to a psychiatrist, and I think one session was around 3,000, 3,500 rupees.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it is way expensive for just 1 hour. And
Yeah.
unfortunately, we need a lot of hours like that to be spent. And
Yes.
I do hope like someday we have very accessible mental health, like doctors and medical help that we can actually get for mental health.
Yeah. In India, it's more like a religious thing. Like, oh, you're sad, you pray and you will come out of it. Of course, God helps you, but you know, it God helps someone who helps themselves. So you have to seek help. There are emotions that want to be addressed. There are issues that want to be addressed. So they if they don't show up as depression is like it's only a symptom, but there is underlying deep root causes that cause depression. So yeah.
Correct, absolutely, yeah.
Mm.
Are there any specific triggers that would actually contribute to your depressive state, or like it would just be a prolonged?
Triggers for me especially would be like if someone comes into my personal space or barges in, and if someone is trying to ask me questions that are very intrusive, or if I have to be social in an environment where I'm not comfortable. All these used to be triggers for me, but also putting myself in situations where I didn't want to be, like going some places where I don't feel safe. That used to trigger me.
How did you decide to seek help, and what kind of support did you find most beneficial?
Unfortunately for me, I waited till the last minute. I tried to help myself, but I was not very aware of what to do and how to help myself. I did the best I could, but I waited till I got a panic attack, and then there was no choice but to go and seek medical help. It's better to seek medical help before than to wait till the last minute to get till it gets worse.
In pandemic, I was in Australia, and my entire family was in India. So I was actually volunteering during the wave two. I know that India faced a very bad wave two for COVID here. So
Yeah.
people would actually approach me through social media asking for if there were any leads, and I would call up hospitals to actually find if there were beds and stuff. That actually pushed me to the edge.
Mm.
I actually had a huge panic attack where I thought it was a heart attack. I immediately rushed to the hospitals, kept saying that no, I'm going through a heart attack. Please, can you check me? Can you check me? I'm not able to breathe. It's very heavy and all those things, you know. And then they did all the diagnosis. They went through in Australia. They did all the checkups. They got my cardiac markers as well up, and then they checked everything. And then it was discovered that I was having a panic attack because of that entire episode of Wave 2 in India. My family was fortunately like they were well during that time, but it was the other people whom I didn't know. Even listening to those stories and also looking at Facebook stories was making
Yeah.
me very anxious about what was going on in India. And
Mm.
immediately after that is when I started getting medical help. I started going to a I used to go to a psychologist even before that, but I had stopped in between because of pandemic and many other
Okay.
reasons. But I immediately started seeking help. And as you said, as soon as you come to know that there is some kind of a trigger, it's better to go to a medical, whatever the doctor or whoever,
Yeah.
psychologist or a psychiatrist, and get
Mm.
their help.
It also helps when you identify your triggers, so you know that this over time, when you know that this particular incident is going to trigger me, at least you can prepare yourself mentally, like to say, okay, I'll have a coping mechanism to it.
Were there any cultural or societal factors that influenced your decision to seek help?
For me, I had dropped out of nursing, so for my family to fix my problem was for me to go back and do it. So everyone is just trying to fix the problem, but no one is actually asking to fix the person. Like, like what is actually bothering you. No one asks how exactly you're feeling. Feelings are not regarded much, because no matter how you're feeling, you're supposed to put your feelings aside and do what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
When we address our feelings, it's easier to not carry baggage. But when you put all the feelings aside, it becomes baggage over time. So for me, culturally, initially I started ignoring everything and saying I'm fine, I'm fine. But then it got to a point where I couldn't ignore the problem and I had to seek medical help. But after many years of like reading and experiencing it myself, now I have changed my perspective, and now I have changed. I motivate myself to seek therapies, to seek if I have a trigger, and if I reach out to my friends and say like I am feeling very low. Can you give me an EFT session? And I'm feeling very anxious. How can I deal with it? Or I'm feeling very whatever nervous or whatever emotion has come up, and EFT has helped me very much to address these feelings. Culturally they say that anger is labeled as a negative emotion, and you're not supposed to feel these emotions. They say don't get angry, or don't feel sad. So anger, sadness, and all these are labeled as negative emotions, and you're not supposed to feel them, so you suppress all these emotions. So with EFT I have learned that emotions are just emotions. There is no good emotion or bad emotion. You can allow the emotions to come up, and of course if the emotion has in extreme, any emotion is harmful and unhealthy. So, a moderate amount of anger is just a protective mechanism, and a moderate amount of sadness is the time you need to take rest. If you welcome all these emotions, you don't need to suppress it.
You were talking about how it triggered and what you faced, right? What were the challenges that you went through?
Yeah.
Can you share some strategies or coping mechanisms that played a significant role in your recovery?
Initially, it started with medical intervention. So, first thing what they did when I was diagnosed is to put me on medication. And for 3 years I was on medication, but I was not able to feel very confident about myself, or very I was still stuck in a victim mode where I was feeling, oh, this happened to me. I then found EFT one day. It was Dr. Angana's therapy that I had seen it on Instagram, and I signed up for her masterclass, and I felt so relaxed and so calmed down. My nerves had actually calmed down, and I felt very calm. And then I enrolled for her class and also to become a therapist. And as I was doing EFT, it was very overwhelming for me when I initially started doing EFT, because when you tap on certain points, all your suppressed emotions come to the surface. So you are activating those nerves and those meridians in your body, which remember the trauma. So as I was doing that and tapping, I was recollecting all the trauma, and it was very overwhelming for me. For the first 2 3 classes, I just left midway, but they called me back and they followed up with me, and then I learned that it is okay to accept yourself as you are. It is okay to allow these emotions to come up towards my abusers. And I had a lot of unforgiveness, and I had a lot of hatred towards them and towards myself. And that hatred bled into all my relationships. Like, I started hating my friends, I started hating life, I started hating everything. And with EFT, it allowed me to bring up this feeling of hatred. Usually, we label hatred as a negative emotion and we suppress it. But with EFT, I was given a safe space to allow this emotion to come up, and then I could release this emotion. That's why it's called emotional freedom technique. So you free these trapped emotions that are trapped in your body. You just free these emotions and allow them to come up. As I allowed all these emotions to come up, I was uncovering layers after layers. I'm still working on myself. I'm still a work in progress. These labels are very confusing, but it's just all the trapped emotions in our body. And with EFT especially, and I also did NLP, which is neuro linguistic programming. So I had a lot of limiting beliefs, like this is a bad emotion, we cannot feel it, or oh, I have now I have depression, so I cannot live my life fully, or who will marry me. In India, it's all about getting a career, getting married, having kids. So, in forms of modality, first, my medication helped me, and to stabilize my mental health. And then EFT and NLP. EFT helped me with releasing all the suppressed emotions as a child, and NLP has given me the confidence to speak up. I wouldn't even have this call with you. I'm very socially anxious usually. But NLP has given me the confidence to break all these limiting beliefs, to break
Amazing.
through these barriers, to break through this stigma. So it rewires your brain. With these therapies, you have more compassion towards yourself.
Rini, you spoke about NLP, EFT, how it has actually helped you and stuff. But when you
Yes.
were actually going through this process, were there any specific milestones or moments that marked positive changes in your mental health?
Actually, it took me a very, very long time to come out of this depression. It took me almost 10 years, which is a very long time. Yeah. After a long time, NLP and EFT are the milestones that I reached.
What exactly do you do? For example, like you uncover something, there's a trigger that
Yes.
happens. So in that
Mm-hmm.
EFT process, what do you do?
It's essentially you tap on these acupressure points in on your body, and they activate the meridians in your body. Like I said, these meridians are connected to the nervous system that remember the trauma. So when you think about the emotion of sadness and you tap on these points, it reminds you, or the emotion comes up to the surface. So then you scale the emotion on a scale of 0 to 10 and you talk about that emotion, or you bring it up.
Okay.
You feel the emotion. And then through the rounds of tapping, the emotion comes down invariably. Or sometimes it takes 2-3 rounds of tapping for that, 2-3 sessions.
My psychologist had given me a similar exercise. So when I was
Yeah.
going through the panic attack during the pandemic, as I mentioned, so she actually told me that whenever you get some trigger like that, so instead of tapping, this was something that I had to do when I was facing it, when I had the trigger
Yeah.
itself.
Yeah.
So I would go through that trigger and I would associate that to a color.
Okay.
So a different color. So and
Yeah.
like once I deal with it, saying that this is what makes me feel and this is the color that it comes up with, then I accept it. And even if
Yeah.
I have emotions of tears or anger or sadness or anything, I go through that
Yeah.
completely at that time,
Yes.
and then
Yes.
I accept it. And once that is done, then it is done. And then even
Yeah.
if it comes again, I go through the same process over again as a new trigger rather than
Yeah.
actually associating this to the previous trigger. And it helped me to a certain extent.
That's essentially what we do. But you also rewire your system with EFT. So
Okay.
your nerves now remember the new affirmations that you're speaking. So usually we say, even though I have this so and so problem, I love and accept myself, or I
Okay.
accept this problem. So you're rewiring your brain to accept the problem
Okay.
instead
Wow.
of rejecting the idea.
Really nice. So many different techniques. So what advice would you give to others facing mental health challenges with the cultural context, especially in India?
First thing I would tell anyone going through any kind of mental illness is, you are not alone. Don't isolate yourself, and try to accept the help that is coming your way. And early diagnosis is very important. Don't wait like me to the last minute to let things go out of hand and then seek for help. Even a conversation with a trusted friend, a conversation with a psychologist, a conversation, obviously, talk to someone, talk to anybody who you know will help you. Or there are so many other people online who are actually, having a safe space to talk or express yourself. So try to express what you're feeling, and even if it is very painful, allow the emotion to come up. And my advice to the people who are with the people who are going through these problems is, don't push them. Give them their space and give them their time to go through whatever issues or challenges that they're having. And if you can help them, reach out to like a professional, a medical professional, if they need really it is very severe and they need a medical help, or if just a conversation with a psychologist, or just seek therapy, or even in alternative modalities like EFT. It is proven that it can clinically proven to help alleviate like signs of depression and anxiety and everything. Be kind to one another also. Don't stigmatize the person more that you cannot go into depression. Of course they can, that's why they are in depression. They need more kindness and compassion at that time. I know that people don't know how to help them, so just read about it, make yourself aware, educate yourself on what depression is and how to take care of people who are depressed. The stigma is so much that you're scared to make a step, or you're scared to take decisions because what will other people say.
Correct.
So it's nice when you have kind people around you. Like if you don't know a kind person, be a kind person.
Yes, absolutely.
Be kind towards, be kind towards everyone who needs this kind of support and who needs this kind of reassurance to just be themselves.
So, what does life look for you after overcoming, or even after this long journey that you have taken towards mental health and recovering from the depression that you were talking about?
It looks like a road full of challenges. Earlier, I used to look at these challenges as obstacles that are limiting me from living my life. Like, oh, I have depression, I cannot do this and I cannot do that. Now it's like a challenge. It's like, oh, and no, my new challenge now is like, earlier I was very suffering from like not that great health. And even to climb a flight of stairs, I used to pant and I could barely walk 3 kilometers. But now I have challenged myself, and now I can walk like up to 15 kilometers. Like,
Wow.
of course, I take breaks. Of course, I take breaks, but like, traveling, trekking has increased my like stamina, and physically I have feel more confident also. So when you challenge yourself, so my perspective earlier of depression was like, oh, it's negative, and these are the obstacles that I have to face. Now it looks like challenges, and it's like a new challenge every day. So it's like, what is the next challenge coming my way?
That's so
It is
good to
not
hear.
that it is not that I don't get depressed. I still get depressed, and I still face triggers, and I still face stigma, and people don't want me to talk about my abuse. They're like, oh, what will the world say? Who will marry you if you say openly that you were abused? That's another stigma, that if you say you're abused, no one will marry you, or if you say that you have depression, no one will marry you, or whatever. I have learned to be confident in myself. After all these therapies, I have faced all these challenges of denying myself to a place of self-love, where now I love myself, and I have come to accept myself just the way I am, even with my abuse, even with my depression, even with I'm still on medication, and I still take therapies, like I still do EFT and NLP. But it is like when I get a trigger, I use these coping mechanisms to cope with the problem, and I'm not neglecting my health. So I'm making mental health a priority. So when I'm in a situation where I feel triggered, or I excuse myself from that situation. So earlier it used to be like, I don't want to offend people, or I
Uh,
don't want to say this or say that. But now I'm like, I'm really sorry. I cannot do it because I have to prioritize myself. Sincere hope for anyone who is listening this, and I honestly hope that if you are someone who is struggling with any kind of mental illness, be it depression, anxiety, ADHD, or any label that you are suffering with, even if you are undiagnosed, or you feel whatever, you don't feel mentally okay, just try to educate yourself on what it is that you're going through. Identify your triggers, reach out to a professional. There is help everywhere if you only look for it.
it's very useful advice and very resourceful. Seek help. And I think the medical guys who are like medically qualified to deal with this
Yeah,
are,
qualified.
yeah, qualified, are the better people to help. You could
Yes.
confide into your friends, family, and stuff, but then again, they have very limited knowledge. So always go for medical help, and that is the
Mental.
best thing that we can. Are there
Yeah.
ongoing practices or habits that you maintain to prioritize your mental well-being? One of the things that you said is you excuse yourself and then you step out whenever there are triggering moments.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
apart from that, do you do anything else? So travel is another one that you said that it has
Yeah.
helped you. Being in nature and then meeting new people are something that has helped you. Anything else?
Having a routine really helps. So when you get up and follow a certain routine, and you're more confident in yourself, like, you choose to wake up, you have your things organized. Or working out also really helps, and education also really helps, and journaling helps again.
Oh wow,
Or
okay.
journaling and expressing yourself through art, through music. Or if your passion is photography, doing that. If your passion is traveling, doing that. Just being your authentic self. If your passion is singing, expressing yourself is really important. It's when your self expression is dull or suppressed, it comes up as depression and all that. So if you're carrying any baggage in life, I would recommend, like, really looking and paying attention to all the triggers and the traumas that you're carrying, and deal with it one step at a time. Of course, it's going to take some time for some people who have extra issues, but even that is treatable. Even complex issues take time, but it is treatable.
If somebody wants to reach out to you for any NLP or EFT or even any kind of advices, like where can they reach out to you?
Or have an Instagram page, or like just WhatsApp or Facebook if you search for Rinian Pavel. I'm an EFT practitioner in training, and I have 50 clients to take on for my practice sessions. So it'll be really nice to connect with people who need a free EFT sessions. I can give them free EFT sessions. Usually it's pretty pricey to have an EFT session, but for people who are learning and they need to do their case studies, so I'm offering like free EFT right now.
Can I
So that
sign
is
it?
really nice. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that would be lovely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Rini, for coming on this
Thank
show
you
and
so
talking
much,
about it.
Raksha.
Yeah, it is. You said that I am an inspiration, but no, you are an inspiration. I know
Not
that
at all.
the depression or even the sad state is like it's a very dark place because I have gone through the panic attacks and anxiety issues. So it is a very very dark place, and to actually come out of it and like becoming a coach and helping other people who are going through the same kind of issues is something that's absolutely commendable. And I would love to connect with you on these ELP sessions. And yeah, it's absolutely amazing. And it was amazing talking to you. It was really wonderful.
Thank you for, first of all, thank you for having this platform where people can come and talk. And thank you for choosing me for to come on your show and like talk. And I hope we can reach out to people. And that's all I really want, is to help people, because I know the pain of going through all this. Yeah.
I do hope it becomes more and more open, and people can talk about it very open.
So grateful to you, Rakshan. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. My pleasure.